Welcome back to the BuiltOnAir podcast, season 11, episode 3. Good to be with you again this Tuesday morning. Myself, Dan Fellers. We have a special guest with us, Tim Alexander. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yep, we're glad you could join us. We'll learn more about Tim's story later on in the show. And we'll also have Camille joining us. She's just running late, so she'll be with us in a few minutes. Allie could not join us down with COVID for this week, so wish her well. Hopefully she'll be back with us next week and feeling better. So with that, let's get started for today's show. As always, the BuiltOnAir podcast is roughly an hour long. We go through a couple different segments and help each other learn more about the world of Airtable. We always start with around the bases, going through the different communities, see what's going on with everything, and talk about the latest. And then we'll do a spotlight on OnToAir, our primary sponsor. Then we'll learn more about Tim and his background and story and what he's up to. And then Tim is going to walk us through a application that he's created and working on, and we'll walk us through that. So we'll learn more about that. Then we'll do a quick plug for our community for those who haven't joined yet. And then finally, if we have time, we'll do a scripting time, which was what we were going to do last week, but ran out of time. So we'll see if we can get to that today. So that'll be the show for today. As always, we'll kick off with our round the bases of what's going on in the Airtable community. Welcome to all those listening live and watching live with us. This week, there wasn't a whole lot going on, so I just have a few things I want to talk about, but I thought it would be interesting if anybody listening or watching has anything worth discussion. Feel free to drop some links if you know of any topics that are worth talking about in this segment. Drop us some links and we'll bring them on and discuss them. So if you saw anything interesting as you're browsing the internet that's Airtable related, put the link in the discussion thread and we'll talk about it. So a few things. There was a couple announcements. The first one, we actually broke this. I believe Scott might have been, who's listening or watching, might have been the first to break this. We saw this in the comments. Kavan, I think, posted it here as well. So somebody broke this for us while we were on the episode last week, that they increased the automation limit. So now you can get up to 50 automations from 25. And so that's a huge plus for anybody doing a lot of automations, and glad that they increased that. So that's in conjunction with the ability, I think previous to this, they had added the ability to create segments within your automations so you could organize your automations better. And now that you can organize them, they increased the limit. So that was very nice. They haven't increased the number of automation runs you can have each month. Maybe that's the next big announcement that they make, or at least have some ability to pay for more or something along those lines, because I know a lot of people run into limitations on there. So that's good to see. Increase in automations. Any thoughts on that, Tim? I don't know if you're involved on that side.
I just find it very interesting. I mean, we'll talk more about how I've come into the Airtable world, but I find it very interesting what Airtable is doing, because it really just kind of like moves where you put the automation from kind of, I guess where the places we probably have traditionally in the past 5 to 10 years. And when they're doing things like just opening it up more, it just makes so much sense what they're doing, because it's gonna keep pushing more and more people to be like, what is this thing? And I love this. I think it's so exciting what they're doing.
Yeah, it goes from really being, I think, I still remember when they launched automations, and it went from being just a memory storage location that was easy to access your data, to really becoming the brains of your data with automations. And that really, I think, is the future of really Airtable being kind of the real brains behind any processes, procedures, data, workflows, and automations is core to that, to be able to make your data come to life. Yeah. So good to see that they're working to push the limits there on what you can do with automations. All right, there is one more announcement that this just came out yesterday. So integration with Miro. Miro is a tool, kind of a visual designer, allows you to create mock-ups and mind maps. And I've seen some cool stuff. I'm not a Miro user. I think somebody commented, I actually use this Whimsical, which is a newer player in the space that's kind of cool. But it looks like they're integrating with Miro. So now you can have Miro as a sync source. So you can actually pull data in from Miro into Airtable. So all of like your elements that you're designing in your Miro board can be referenced in your Airtable data. So that's an interesting integration. I'd be curious if anybody's planning to utilize that. That's probably not something I'll be playing around much with, but I do know, actually I have some clients that use Miro, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So that's if anybody out there using Miro, feel free to check out this new integration that it looks like it's live, but they're not formally announcing it until later this week. So this is a pre-announcement that went out yesterday.
So wait, how is that supposed to work? Is you're supposed to drag, like you pull the nodes that are in Miro into Airtable?
I believe, yeah. So you'll basically, if you've ever used their sync from other sources, yeah, so it looks like they'll create like a record for every node or every element within Miro. It kind of is interesting because I don't know how it maps one-to-one with like a record. It's not a natural data source like some of the others that are more of a relational data source stream. And we've got Camille here joining us. Welcome, Camille. Good to have you.
Hello.
Welcome. So we're in the middle talking about yesterday they announced integration with Miro, and to figure out what that actually means. So it'll be interesting because it's not the natural sync source like some of the others that feel more like a data sync, like a Google Sheets or email or things like that. So Miro is kind of different.
Wasn't there an app that, or am I thinking
They do have, I think there is a Miro app, but I think that's just to kind of see your Miro boards within the sidebar. This one actually is a sync source where it'll actually kind of sync all your Miro components into records. So interesting stuff there.
Got it.
Yeah, moving on. Like I said, if you're just joining us, if anybody has any interesting topics that you want to throw out there, put the links in the chat. Otherwise, we just got a couple Twitter threads that I thought were of interest. So this one I thought was interesting, posted by MicroAcquire. Somebody else kind of called this out that this is a Airtable plugin for sale. So MicroAcquire is a marketplace for maybe smaller end software products or software companies looking to get acquired. So here's probably one of the first Airtable plugins for sale. It doesn't give the name. I maybe have some guesses, but it's a profitable Airtable plugin for accountants and personal finance users. And it says it's doing 50,000. I assume that's annual. Yeah, trailing 12 months, and they're asking $500,000. So if anybody's looking to get into the game of the Airtable plugin world and have some cash to spend, here's an option for you to buy. Camille, here's an avenue for you.
I'm confused at what this is. Is it an extension? What is the new word? It's extension, right?
It's still apps.
I thought it was changed. I
It's
got an email and I forgot what the email said.
it's coming, but not
Okay.
announced yet.
All right. Well,
You're dropping
nah.
all sorts of just new things. Getting
I
ahead of
don't
time.
know what's known anymore. I don't know what this is.
Yeah. I know there's maybe 2 that I know that are out there that are kind of plugins for personal finance.
But what does it do? Like, is it like some? Well, I can't even use OntoAir as an example because you have 2 new apps in the marketplace. Yay. But you also have things that exist on a separate sort of server
Right.
that, use the API key to do things outside of Airtable with Airtable data. I don't know.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's not an app or extension. I think it will pull from like your bank account and push data into Airtable. So it's more of a kind of sync between your bank and Airtable and maybe it has kind of a base structure, a predefined, base structure on how to manage your personal finances.
All right.
So, but it'll be interesting especially if it sells for that price. I would be surprised, but that would be cool. So good luck to whoever is behind this. If you want to demo it on the podcast, we'd love to have you on. Talk about that. So, or whoever buys it, come on the show and let us know. So I thought that was worth putting out there if anybody's interested in that. Here's a ongoing, always, relevant topic. What do you do when you need more than 50,000 Airtable rows? This is a common question that comes up quite a bit. So I thought it was interesting to see some of the options that people throw out there. Andy just says, it's always situational. The good news is, and we broke this a couple of weeks ago, that they have increased or are increasing the limit at the enterprise level. And hopefully that's coming to the pro level soon. So the enterprise level is now at 250,000 across the base or 100,000 for an individual table. So hopefully those limits will trickle down to other plans. And then other people mentioned some alternatives. So there's a product out there that I've played with a little bit called Xano, Xano, and that does a sync with, allows you to bring your Airtable data into a database, like a Postgres database. And there's also a new product out there, newer. What did they change their name to? It was Sync SO, and they changed their name to, you remember, Camille?
No, I didn't know they changed their name.
Yeah, they changed their name. Shoot, dang it. We've had them on the show before. My bad. If anybody remembers.
I quite liked that.
The Sync SO.
Yeah. Well, I'll be Googling in the meantime.
Yeah. Google that and let me know. So some other options. This is an alternative. I looked into this. This Blaze No Code is another no code competitor out there that I hadn't heard of before. I always like to see who else is getting into this Airtable game. Base row is one we've talked about. Other people talk about, just how to structure your data to account for dealing with that and ways that you could archive it. So it's a good thread. It's always good to be aware of that. and how you're going to deal with that. Because if you're a company of any decent size, you likely might run into this. Depends on how you use Airtable, of course, but yeah, for sure, I've got several clients that are hitting the limits and have to figure out ways to archive and ways to reduce the data usage. So there are a couple options out there. All of them kind of take some labor to get working, but yeah. Any update, Camille?
I'm working on it. I am
No,
again.
nothing?
I did not know they changed their name at all,
Yeah.
and now
If you
it's
go
going
to
to haunt me for the next however long it
go to
takes.
sync.so and see where it redirects you.
It didn't redirect me.
Oh, maybe they didn't change their name.
What?
Why did I think they changed their name?
Did you
Sync.so
put me on a wild goose chase?
Sync.so is for sale, so something's changed, unless it's spelled differently. sync.so is for sale.
I was thinking of Sync Inc., which is a different.
Yeah, Sync Inc. Sync Inc. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I think it's Sync Inc.so.
I am going to lose my mind quietly and ignore me for a while.
All right, that works. So cool. So that's kind of what's going on in the world of Airtable. We didn't get any requests for topics to discuss from our community. So kind of a quiet week. Those are good to have. We've had some busy ones in the previous weeks, and so yeah, we'll see if things pick up next week. So with that, we'll move on from Round the Bases and we'll talk about Onto Air, which is an all-in-one toolkit to run your business on Airtable. It's a suite of apps that allow you to extend your business with Airtable usage, do a variety of different things. And in today's spotlight, we're going to keep with our theme from last week. We went into deep discussion on the new Onto Air schema that's now in the marketplace, and we're just starting to roll that out and work out some of the kinks and get it all ironed out. But I wanted to talk about, I've gotten this question as I've talked to people testing it out, and they'll often ask, like, how does it compare to the Schema app that Airtable has? And so I wanted to just kind of do a quick compare and contrast of the Schema app. So up here, right here, you see this is the base Schema app that Airtable provides in their marketplace that's free. And, really, this is very similar. They actually were kind enough to open source their design for how they do the layout, which we borrowed and based ours off of. But this is pretty limited as far as what you can do. You can kind of see relationships between fields, but you can't see what type of fields these are. There's not a whole lot of functionality that you can do here. So it's really just a visual way to just kind of see what you've got in your base. If you've got a base that's large like this one, it's really hard to maneuver around and whatnot. And so if you think about it, I always kind of compare our Schema app is kind of this base schema on steroids. That's a kind of nice proof of concept. But if you really want real functionality, then check out our Schema apps that's down here. Initially kind of looks the same, but the big difference is this: you can see every type of field that it is. It will highlight and it'll give you the name of the field. So if you're zoomed in, you can easily see what's going on. It has the relationships, but then you can go much deeper. You can click on any field and get all the information about that field, the meta information, all the fields that it's linked to. You can quickly jump between them. Oh, my mouse is acting up. And you can see the relationships. So for a record link, you can see where it's linked to, quickly jump to that field and see all the relationships, both inbound and outbound relationships. You can see what views this field is visible in. And you can also keep your own notes and information that isn't stored in the field description, but this is more notes that you can keep for yourself, and it will display those notes when you hover over any of the fields. And then also the big thing is you can create snapshots. And what a snapshot is, it's essentially a backup of your schema, and then it will create a diff and show you all the changes that happen to all of your fields. Anytime you create new tables, you can see an audit trail of all the changes that are made to your schema information. So super powerful. Every time a field was modified and you don't know why, you can look through this and it will help you figure it out. It will help you see what it was linked to, and or a formula field, you can see the formula, you can see how it's changed, and so you can see the lifetime of the formula. So extremely powerful if you're managing any kind of large database that's relevant to your business. I think this is a must-have component for managing your base. So check that out. Just click on Add an App, and you'll find us in the marketplace. Search for OntoAir. You'll see one of our 3 apps that we now have in the marketplace. So ontoair.com. OntoAir Schema is our schema app. Let's move on.
Before we do, I found it. They are
You
now
got it.
Sequin.
Sequin, that's right. Sequin.
Yes, Sequin.io. That was going to kill me.
Shout out to Sequin.io, formerly Sync Inc. So that was it. Still starts with an S. So
Yes.
very good. Thank you. All right. We have with us Tim Alexander coming from, I want to say Australia, right?
Yeah, I'm originally from the U.S. I'm from New Jersey, but I live in Bondi, Sydney, Australia.
Very cool. Awesome. How long have you been down there?
Since mid 2020, like April 2020, I moved down here. So kind of like right at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell of a
And that
time to
was just-
move.
Yeah, I fully noped out. I literally was like, let's go to an island.
Nice. And what took you down there? Just for fun?
My fiance and is from here, and we wanted to have our daughter down here, and it was just, when you date somebody from another part of the world, then you early in the relationship you kind of have the conversation. Are you willing to move here or there? Like, so we kind of live on 2 sides of the world now. Half the year, like this coming August, I'll be back in the New York area until probably about December. We're basically just avoiding winters. That's what we're basically trying to do.
Fair.
Nice.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us your story, how you got to where you're at now? Tell us a little bit about your work experience and anything else you want to share.
Yeah. So so I have always sort of been an integrations guy. I started off at a small corporate tax software company called TaxStream that got acquired by Thomson Reuters, and I was the integrations guy there. And then I went to Tibco, which is a pretty large integration and analytics firm that they're like a $1.6 billion company that no one's ever heard of, but they're in everything.
I have heard of them.
Yeah, they're huge. So I was working for them on the Spotfire side. So I used to compete against Tableau. And then I worked for a small, medium-sized events software company, event marketing company called Splash. So if you've ever been to an event, that's splashthat.com. I was the guy who was defining how the integrations worked with Marketo and Salesforce and stuff like that. And then
isn't that I think Airtable uses Splash?
Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, funny enough, Jordan Scott from Airtable used to work on the Eloqua team, on the Tableau team, and I've done integrate. Me and Jordan know each other from completely different lives.
Interesting.
So I worked for Splash for a long time. Love those guys. And then I moved down here, and the Splash work wasn't going to really work out. And so I wanted to go into consulting and kind of get into I ended up creating Sync Foundry, which owns data fetch and is my consulting kind of arm. And I was consulting for like a bank, and then ultimately was consulting for a company called Goldcast, who I also am an employee of, and I'm the director of product there. So Goldcast is a virtual event software company that everyone should be checking out as an alternative to like hop in that kind of world. So that's like me on a personal level and kind of a career path. But as a product manager at both Splash and now and at Goldcast, I was using Jira of all things, and I found this Google Sheets connector that made it so that I no longer had to go into Jira to go get my data, and I could it just made my life so much easier to get the data to come to me where I was, and I became obsessed with that idea that we live in this world where all these companies are coming at us and saying, we've got APIs and we've got all this stuff and we can make your life so great. And they want to make you come into their world. And I'm like, I just want the data. I want the one thing that I need from you to come to me where I am. Come meet me where I am. Don't make me go get certified in your crap. And don't make me learn another paradigm for another UI. And so I got obsessed with this, and I was like, I wanted to go build something that would make data come to me. And I started in Google Sheets, but I kind of stalled there. And I also saw a lot of people were doing the same thing. And so eventually I was like, well, what does it mean for data to literally come to me? Like, where am I always 100% of the time? And the answer was Slack. For me, 100% of my time right now, even though we're all on a podcast, I could still technically receive a Slack on my phone or something like that. So I'm always there. And if I'm communicating with people on my team, especially in the COVID world, it's through that. So I kind of just started kicking around this idea of what if I made a Slack command that could kind of do everything? What if you made the Google of Slack commands? Because you don't go Slack. Everyone already knows how to use most of these Slack, like the slash commands, right? You know how to use Giphy, you know how to use Zoom, like the remind command. A lot of people know how to use that stuff. But then all of these other apps, oh yeah, HubSpot has a slash command, and oh yeah, insert name of company, they have a slash command too, and they all work differently. And you're not going to use any of them because you're not going to remember to use any of them. You're just going to go to that tool. I don't search every website in the world for the thing that I'm looking for. I just go to Google, and the stuff that I need surfaces up. So what data fetch is a slash command that you can use /df or /data fetch and pull data from basically anything. And so we went from we've got Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, Confluence, Notion. We've got Redshift and BigQuery and Postgres, and we've got all sorts of stuff. And everything that we've been doing has been very much based on talking to customers, users, whatever. And there's a co-working space that I'm a member of down here called Fishburners. And I was like, well, what do you guys use? And the first thing they said was we use HubSpot and we use Airtable. And Airtable is what runs the entire back of our platform. And it had been the 5th or 6th time that I'd really gotten an indication that I should be paying a little bit more attention to Airtable than I was. And so, I did. The Fishburners has been extremely generous with working with me to kind of be guinea pigs for me to come up with some use cases. And now we have rolled out this functionality, or we're about to start rolling out this functionality publicly that allows users to search a slash command, and it's completely powered by Airtable with no code. So I think I'm doing something kind of different from what everybody normally does with Slack, which is I can send a notification. That's great. I'm sick of notifications. And I'm doing something very different from the person who has a very similar name to me. I know data fetchers out there. Data fetcher in the Airtable world is, big. I get it. Yeah. So, but we're
Yeah,
almost.
we gotta clarify that we had the data fetcher on last season. So.
I was waiting for the time to sort of point out
Sure.
the differences. Data fetcher, who was on the show before, brings data into your Airtable base. So
Right.
if you have a partner agency or whatever, you could have it all and look it all in Airtable. But data fetch.io, what you guys are doing is allowing you to stay in Slack and pull information from Airtable or from HubSpot or from all of these other different services.
Yeah.
So very different, similar names.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know. Someday, me and Andy Cloak are going to be in a conference together, and we'll have to like arm wrestle for it or something.
But you launched first, right? So we'll give you that credit.
We'll leave that off the podcast. But yeah, so that's what it is. It's I consider myself to kind of have the fastest demo in the world, because it's literally just, hey, I'm going to do a slash command. It's going to pull data. But the power in this thing is it's the use cases. So it's the same way that the power of Tableau is not the fact that it makes charts, but it's about how you apply it, right? So it's like, what can you do in the sales team? What can you do in the marketing team? What can you do in a fraud department? Well, with data fetch, what we've been able to do is say, for communities, like let's say we were implemented in the BuiltOnAir community, then we would be able to hook up to your Airtable to make it so that anybody in the BuiltOnAir community can search for each other with way more, search terms like, oh, I'm a consultant, or oh, I'm a developer, or oh, I am, a podcast host. If you wanted to make the directory searchable in that way, or if you wanted to have the list of companies that are, the ones that there are special perks for being part of BuiltOnAir, like whatever it is. So community has actually been a surprising play for us. Customer support, that's actually a big one for us. The ability to take the data that exists inside your own company and operationalize it, not by telling people, here's a new dashboard, here's a new thing to learn, but instead it's like, you remember when you were able to send that GIF? Training's done. Training's over. You can now pull up statistics about our company. You can pull up, you can run queries based on our data warehouse. You can do whatever you want. That's what data fetch is really doing.
Very cool. All right, that's awesome. Any questions, Camille, other than before we jump into the product?
It wasn't really a question, but you started at some point during your story, I believe you said, what if I made a command that did everything? And I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's just what you can do now. That's cool.
It's a command that it functionally, and maybe it makes more sense when I show it, but functionally what it's doing is it's a single command, /df or /df, but df is faster to type, so /df, and it takes in whatever words you type in after that, the same way that the Giphy command does. And then it syndicates that search term to any of the platforms that you have hooked up to it in real time, returns the data back to a in-memory cache on our servers, sorts it, and then gives you a list that you can go through to say, here are the results that it found across any of the systems that you have searched it on. So if you have just an Airtable, it just searches your Airtable. But if you have like 5 systems hooked up, then it will search all 5 of those systems, and you can configure what the templates look like on each one. So you want a custom specialized way of pulling back data from HubSpot, we can make that happen out of the box with no code.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
Should we take a look at it?
Yeah, why don't we
here, I will share my screen.
Okay, yeah, so we'll get into datafetch.io. So if you're just watching this segment, go back to the previous segment and you'll hear Tim's story and how datafetch came to be. And so with that, I'm going to put your screen on. All right, there you go.
Awesome. Okay. So this is just a demo base that I put together that has a list of every like the top or the most recent 1,000 Y Combinator companies. So it's basically scraped right off the Y Combinator site. I am going to be in this Slack here in Widgets Co. I'll make this a little bit bigger so people can see. And let's say that I wanted to look up companies that had something to do with crypto. I can either go to, I'm already logged into Slack. I'm always logged into Slack. I can either go out and search on things, or I can just say DF crypto. And it's going to pull back every company that has some sort of mention of crypto in their name, and then allow me to view the details on that particular company. And if I want to, I can send it into the conversation. So that's it. In a funny way, that's the whole demo.
Right.
How we put it together is kind of the trick. So if we go here, this search here, we put in, I've already authenticated just using an API key. You determine which fields are searchable from that particular table. It supports views and stuff like that. And then we have a little template builder here that is fully drag and drop and allows you to, basically define what you want your results to look like. It even allows you to define kind of what the name of this thing is. Is it an Airtable? An Airtable record, whatever you want it to call it. And then search, say what metadata, say what things you want it to come back. That's what it is that we're doing here. Is we're literally saying, take any table, make it searchable, and that's it. Use cases on that. If I'm here at in my Fishburners account, so this is this is my co-working space's Slack. If I wanted to search for help with marketing, these are going to be all of the mentors that are part of the Fishburners program, either through Google or through, because they have a special relationship with Google, or directly through their own network. I can find people to set some time with. I can get their book a link calendar, book a calendar link right there. I don't have to go hunting down through some other portal. That's what we're doing. We're literally saying, let's take every bit of data that exists in any given platform and connect it to your to where you are. So if you want to build Slack Airtable powered / commands, that's us.
Yeah.
As is typical for all product demos, I'm looking for buttons. I can see that you have a back to results button. So if you click on one result, you're not stuck with that result. You can go back to your previous search. That's correct. Cool. Yeah, I like it. I'm also one of those people who is tech savvy and then doesn't use technology. So I don't think in the many years that I've used Slack, I don't think I've ever done a / command.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I don't. I don't belong here.
Not even a Giphy command?
No, I don't. It took years to add emojis to any of my bases in Airtable. But what I'm seeing from data fetch and what I like about the implementation that you went with is that it's not, the command is just DF. or data fetch. It's not DF Airtable or DF HubSpot.
Right.
It's DF, and then what do I want to look for?
That's exactly right. That is like the crux of like what we've been trying to do with this thing. Like when I think about who I built this for, I think about the fact that I've worked at almost my entire career has been software companies. And to say I've worked at a lot of software companies, I've worked with a lot of people who are not technical at all.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to build this for them. I'm trying to build this thing so that when customer success or customer support is coming up with things that constantly need to be like done as SQL queries by the engineering team. And then so somebody has to create a Jira ticket to make that happen, and it wastes engineering resources. I'm trying to say, no. Let's just train everybody to just say /df it and just look for it on their own, or provide them a query tool on their own that they can just run for themselves. I can actually pull open a pretty decent example of that in Slack. Where is this? You guys are still with me, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in here, this is my like real. This is my day job. The Slack community, the Slack we have for this company, Goldcast. If I wanted to know all of the upcoming events, and I'm a customer support person here trying to do to just like know what should I be worried about, anybody in this company can type DF upcoming. It searches across multiple systems and then can quickly run against the Postgres and execute that query and come back in a particular template to show them exactly what it is that they need. We also built them a tool that allowed them to download a specific CSV file. So if they type DF magic, it searches that word, finds only one thing, which is a magic link generator, and it actually prompts them for input. So that's something that we're able to do, is actually like that. It's literally an internal tool builder that's no code. So it's kind of it's literally a slash command for getting things that connects to everything.
Is there plans to include filtering? Is there any way to like specify only one source or something in your search?
It's like you're looking at my roadmap. So my roadmap looks like two different things. On one side, there's a list of connectors I want to build, and on the other side, it's bits of functionality, and filtering is absolutely one of them. So you'll be able to pick the table, and then pick any conditions, and then separately do the searching.
Yeah, I could see even within Airtable, you'd say, I only want to search this space or this table or something.
Yeah. What I'm really chomping at the bit for, and I don't know when. I hope maybe you guys will have the inside scoop before it comes out publicly. But whenever they start letting people get access to that metadata API,
it's the one thing that we all want. It's why I only build apps, that go in the marketplace versus living outside on a separate server. Because if you're building an app, you get the metadata essentially fairly easily, and you don't have to do the rigmarole for the metadata API. So that is a feature that we all wanted. We have no clue.
Yeah.
Or at least they haven't announced it.
Yeah. We had a question from Scott for you, Tim. So the search results are for your eyes only unless you choose to send the results to the channel?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you're seeing what's happening, whenever you search for anything. So I'll search for legal. The result comes back, and you can actually see that it's all of this is like only for your own view. It's not something that anybody else can see right now. And then when I view this next step here, that too is only for my own view. No one can see that. It's only when I press send that anybody can actually see anything. So it's literally, like, we made a point to basically try and rip off the Giphy experience so that we could not have to train people.
Yeah.
So that's good. So if I'm constantly searching for stuff, I'm not inundating, the rest of my channel with me
Right.
finding whatever it is that I wanted to find.
Right. That's exactly right.
I had a question about the sort of template builder that controls the sort of look and feel of this result that we have for Anthony. Is there just one template that you build per source, or can you have multiple templates?
You get multiple templates. You have multiple searches per source. So if I wanted to add a new source here, like I can you just continue using the same API key. So if, like, I'll kind of show you the experience. You create a new source, you click new source, you give it a name, right? And so, like, I'll call this Airtable 2. I'm very clever.
Mm-hmm.
And I will copy my API key. And then I have this new source that I can add in new types of searches for. And so all I have to do is paste in a URL or give it the right keys, and it will pull down the data, interpolate what it can do about the metadata that it can extract, and then allow you to then build a template based on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept of making Slack be your user interface to everything else. Because that's where people are. So you're bringing it to them. It's interesting because this functionality of searching across all of your data sources is inherently valuable, regardless of where your interface is.
How many people need multiple bases to store all their data, and having to search amongst multiple bases is, not easy if you're in Airtable. So it's cool that you could just do it in a Slack channel. And, like, as you were demonstrating, you were in like a separate sort of, I think you were in a message thread with just yourself. So even if you said send, it's a reminder for you and not, filling in with the rest of your channel. So it's not even like a burden on, the Slack experience for the other people who may not be needing whatever you're searching for.
100%. Yeah. That's the thing that I have I've been, like, obsessed with in the past month or so. I've been very focused on trying to find scenarios where like how do we make sure that this doesn't become annoying, and how do we come, like it can be Slack has, like, a very locked down user experience. I have very few options of how I get to present data. So I need to take everything that's in my toolkit to make sure that, like, I have a very simple, very self-evident experience, and I need to make a point to, like, how many times am I going to send you a notification that you did this or did that? How many times, we're very conscious of trying to not be an annoying app and just be a useful app.
Yeah.
We had an interesting question from our chat from Scott. Scott saying, let's say you do a search for a company from a company's table in Airtable. Can the search results be customized to include all of the linked employees as well? So basically, if you had a linked record field in Airtable, can it pull or at least show information about those linked records in the result little preview?
I have an approach to how I could make that happen. So if somebody came to me with, like, a use case and a budget, to be frank, that was like, we want this to be implemented for real inside our company, we can find a way to make that happen. It would mean coming up with our own metadata mapping mechanism, where we'd say, here are all of the fields that are really references to other tables and letting you choose, or put in a URL for that table each time. Kind of a crappy experience, but we could make it happen. I'm essentially kicking the can on making that happen, instead just crossing my fingers, hoping that OAuth and metadata API stuff opens up sometime before it's irrelevant or something like that. So that's, it's completely possible. What we do like in other platforms where, like for instance, Salesforce or HubSpot, if there's a related record, we give you the option to expand that record so that you can pull all of the fields from that record too, as long as it is a parent and doesn't have multiple children. The multiple children thing, I haven't figured out a great answer around, other than just concatenating all the strings, which is not always that useful.
Yeah.
I can sort of envision like there'd be your results preview that you have, and then if there's a linked record to an employees table or something, maybe there's a button that says search based on that, and then it does a separate search. So it sort of pre-fills, instead of saying employees from the company, whatever, maybe it sort of pre-fills in what that query is to get there. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different like ways to do yoga or play Twister to get there, but it's just
it's not easy. And I can imagine, you have to consider things like speed and what sort of load it would be if your company is linked to 500 different rows in another table. Well, then Are you loading all 500? Do you need all 500 employees, or are you searching for a particular employee at that company to sort of extend this thought experiment? So I could see how that would be tough to sort of balance, performance. If you're searching for something, you want your results fast because we're all spoiled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have an expectation that needs to be met. Scott, I can see he brought up another comment on this, which is basically the real answer here is that roll-up fields can be used to pull in data from those linked tables, and so then those roll-up fields end up resulting in text strings that are searchable, or at least displayable in an easy way with us. So that's generally what we would probably actually ask people to do right now until the metadata comes out.
Very, very cool stuff, Tim. We're glad to check this out. So yeah, let us know if there's interest. We could explore adding this plugin to the BuiltOnAir Slack group if people want to kind of test that out and see what options are there. So we'll keep in touch and maybe explore that down the road.
Can I, by the way, can I call it one tiny little thing that definitely is going to come up if somebody ever thinks about this again? Security is obviously a thing that needs to be discussed when you're talking about pulling data automatically. Users have the ability to keep all of their data completely private, or they're able to set it as invite only, which means that they can let other people that they specifically choose to be able to, or when they use the / command, even though they didn't create their own source, they too can search the same thing. So that's how you actually deploy this out to large groups of people. One person can author it, and then the entire organization can use it. And then we also have this workspace visibility, which is functionally the same thing, but also populates it into this data source catalog that we're building out, which basically makes it so that if a bunch of users want to have public resources and allow people to subscribe to it or not, their / command, they can just say, okay, I'm going to go subscribe to internal statistics, or I'm going to go subscribe to sales metrics. So those are we've very consciously thought about, like, how do we make sure that enterprise level security is built into the experience without being obtuse.
That's very useful. And I think you said it earlier in that you'd worked with several different software companies, and going along with that, there's a lot of people who are just not tech savvy. So it's great that it doesn't require that every person in whatever Slack workspace it is or channel or whatever, that they have to go and find whatever their API key is and then figure out what's the table ID and record ID. And, Airtable seems simple to me because I've been using it forever. But if I had to do that for every single source, I would be annoyed if every single person in the channel had to do it. But since only one person has to do it and say, share this information with others, seems like that's sort of taken care of.
Yeah, that would be a non-start, and then that's been the past month and a half, is just making sure that is perfectly smooth.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Tim, for coming on and sharing that with us.
Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Yeah, no worries. So we will. We got time. This will be a quick final segment before we finish out. Just a quick plug. If you're not in our community, please join us at BuiltOnAir.com/join. Tim is in our community, and Camille and myself and thousands others of Airtable fans, and we'd love to have you join us. So BuiltOnAir.com/join. Join in on the Airtable discussion. So we're going to end with a quick scripting time, and we're going to dive into kind of that meta information. One way that you could potentially gather that, it's not ideal, but from the scripting app, you can extract meta information. And if you have ever done any kind of scripting, either in the scripting app or in a automation step where you can add a script, you realize that if you're dependent on the name of the field, oftentimes you're going to change the field names, and that's going to break your script or your automation. And I just had a client who, wanted to clean things up a bit. And so they wanted to rename a couple fields, and lo and behold, that broke all the automations. And so one approach that you can take is to use the field IDs. So every field in your table and every table has a unique identifier. And that way, if you use the IDs, then if somebody renames the field, then this ID is going to stay the same for this field. So it doesn't matter what the name is. If you're using the underlying field ID, then you can change the name as much as you want, and it's not going to break your scripts or your automations. So it's not as ideal because it's obviously not as legible when you're looking at the code to know what this is. So what this script does is it will automatically generate both a table view and a JSON representation of your table in kind of a mapping. And so this JSON is good where I'll just use this and I'll copy this, and you can insert this directly into your code that you're using. And then now you have kind of a mapping of the field name. And if the field name, this is kind of what it was at the time of creating this map. So even if the actual field name changes, this doesn't matter because we're going to be using the field ID. So this is just kind of a one-time lookup to get the field ID. So it's okay if the field name changes, even though we might be using this map ID. And so let's look at the code to how to generate this. It's pretty simple. Let's expand this. So the first thing that we do is we're just going to get the current table. So this is a quick shortcut. So even better, I don't have to name the table and change it or ask the user what table. It will just, whatever table you're currently on, it uses cursor.activeTableID and then base.getTable. So now this table references the current table that I'm on. So if you have multiple tables, you can just click to each one and then run the script, and it will generate the table for that, or the mapping for that table. And then from the table, we're getting our fields, and then we're going to create two items, an object. So the squirrely brackets, that represents an object. And then the hard brackets, those are for an array. So we're going to have a object and then an array. And then we're just going to loop through all of the fields, and we're going to just insert into this map a representation of the field name. And I'm doing a little bit of regular expression to replace all spaces with an underscore. And then I'm also putting it in all upper caps. This isn't required to do it this way. This is just how I do it. But even then, I realize sometimes if your field name has like other characters in it, I would probably improve on this regular expression to extract out any special characters, because those typically don't play well within your code. And then I'm just setting that to the field ID. And then I'm also creating this array and pushing into the array the name of the field and the ID of the field. And then Airtable has these handy output. So you can just do output.table and pass in your array of items. And then there's a markdown to just create a separator. And then I'm doing output.text, and I'm using json.stringify. This might be, if you've ever used Stringify, if you pass in this 2 at the end, it will add line breaks, so it'll make it a bit more legible. So this is kind of a nice function to display legible objects and whatnot. So this output will generate, so here's our table with all of the field names with their corresponding IDs. So you might just, if like you're doing a formula or a automation, you could just copy the field that you want, the ID, and then use that in your code. Or you can take this object here and then insert that, and then now you can programmatically reference the field by something that's a bit more legible, and then just get the ID for that. So 2 different ways that you can do it that can help you. And this helps you avoid the issues of every time your name changes, automations break. So useful and good little script that comes in handy. That's not too complicated. Any other tips, Camille, on that?
I want to say a few weeks ago, there was a thread on the community forums that had someone with a use case where they had a single select field that had multiple options for done, each in a different color. And they said, I want to make an automation that marks a record as done, a specific type of done, with the correct color applied. And then there were like 5 answers that were like, you can't do it because it'll say, if you type in done in that field in an update record step, it will pick the first one and you won't be able to specify which color. And I was like, you're all wrong, in a nicer language, because you can do it if you use a script. Because as you pointed out, not just with fields and tables, but your base, your workspace, every user, every single select option and multi-select option has a unique ID. So if you wanted to go overkill and write a script that said, all right, now find the correct select ID, you could have a similar script to this one, which, selects the appropriate table, then gets the appropriate field. You don't need all the fields, you just need the one. And then you find whichever select ID you want for the appropriate color, and then pass that through. You can insert that ID into an update record step or do it all from the script. So it's possible. It's still a bad data structure, but it's possible.
Yep. So yeah, sometimes those IDs are essential. So learning how to get the IDs and how to use them can help you out in your scripting game. So with that, we're a little bit over our hour, but want to appreciate and thank Tim Alexander from datafetch.io. Check it out. And any Slack stuff, I assume they can reach out to you there, or you're also in our community.
Yep.
They can find you. All right, Camille, good to have you back on, and we will see everybody next week, and we'd love to see what you're building on air. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.